With the latest update, Tallbirds have begun to take the spotlight with their new recipes and their ability to be relocated and renewed. To start off, we gotta talk about the new recipes. These recipes put a huge emphasis on eggs, so you're going to want a good way to stock up on them. The breakfast skillet requires 1 egg, 1 vegetable, and restores 5 sanity, 37.5 hunger, and 20 health. Overall, this recipe isn't bad, however, I think it's 1 degree away from the pierogi, which is strictly better. The plain omelet just requires 3 eggs and heals a pretty respectable 50 hunger, restores 5 sanity, and 3 health. It is definitely a solid choice if you're overflowing on eggs and just want hunger. Last but certainly not least is the tall Scotch egg. This requires 1 Tallbird egg and a vegetable, and it restores 5 sanity and a whopping 150 hunger and 60 health. Obviously, the tall Scotch egg stands out over the rest, but the stipulation is that it requires a Tallbird egg, which inherently makes Tallbird eggs a bit more desirable, along with other changes to the way that Tallbirds work that make them easier to farm and more desirable to set up. Tallbirds with no nest will now make their own nest wherever they happen to be, so long as it's on top of rocky turf. Tallbirds themselves drop 2 big meat and produce 1 Tallbird egg in their nest consistently. Tallbirds can be hatched and raised from a small bird to a small-ish bird, then a tall bird, which allows you to grow and cultivate your own artificial Tallbird fortress. Alternatively, you can relocate already existing Tallbirds to a desirable location by teleporting them, then burning down their nest, which will make them put down their nest on top of the rocky turf that you would have already had set up. Now, the benefits of Tallbirds are their 2 big meat makes them a pretty enticing enemy to farm, as well as the Tallbird egg being produced. Clusters of Tallbirds are insane boss killers with a whopping 800 health and a very respectable 50 damage, with a higher than average attack speed. You can make short work of most any bosses with Tallbird. For example, twins are a pretty good option for dealing with Tallbirds and vice versa. While the Tallbirds don't exactly kill the entirety of the twins, as in deplete their entire health pool, they definitely take a chunk out of them, which is very valuable for a boss like the twins, where they're just a really big resource drain and a really big pain to deal with. Here are some ways to farm Tallbirds. The classic method is to just wall the Tallbirds up and kill them manually, which isn't a great way to deal with them, but it's definitely a tried and true method. Anemone farming at the nest is an option, but still not the best because of 1, the anemone investment, and 2, how long it would actually take to kill a single Tallbird with 1 anemone. The Winona method requires catapults, because of course it does, and this is very beneficial because of the high aggro range on Tallbirds. Because Tallbirds are hostile to most everything, you could easily lure Tallbirds to wherever your farm is set up, whether that be in the center of their Tallbird fort, or even just along the edge of one. There are other niche ways too, like putting them next to merms and putting them next to bunnies, whatever, the list goes on. Now, the drawbacks of farming these Tallbirds are as follows. Primarily, the biggest drawback is the insane time sink that comes with Tallbirds. If you're trying to grow your own Tallbird, you're gonna take 3 days to hatch the egg, 10 days to grow the smallish bird to a teen bird, which requires 20 hunger per day, and you could only feed it seeds, and 18 days to grow the teen bird into a tall bird, which requires 60 hunger per day, but it can eat meats, fruits, and vegetables. You can grow them at the same time, so if you want to, you can manage a ton of kids at once. However, keep in mind, Tallbirds themselves will become hostile once they are grown to full. Now, with those benefits and those drawbacks in mind, the question becomes, are Tallbirds worth it? Now, obviously it varies from person to person. However, I personally don't think that Tallbirds are very worth setting up, at least in large quantities. Maybe you're good for relocating them from one point to another, or just even moving a Tallbird fortress to a more desirable location if you already have one set up in your world. The biggest reason why I don't see this as a good source of your time is just because food in this game isn't too big of an issue. Typically, you could set up 1 or 2 farms, such as a pig farm, spider farm, or even just setting up honey, and you'll be fine on hunger for most of the game. Tallbirds really are only terribly beneficial in their food production value. Their boss killing capabilities, while admirable, are not the best use of Tallbirds in my opinion, because a lot of the times, it is more hassle to go through setting up Tallbirds than it is to just kill the boss on your own. The twins, for instance, their drops are pretty good, all things considered. They drop a green and a yellow gem, which are 2 of the most valuable gems in this game, in my opinion. And in addition to that, they dropped the Shield of Terror, which is a pretty alright armor and weapon combo. It's very unique at the very least. But I don't think those two things combined are enough to warrant you farming them over and over and setting up a whole artificial Tallbird fort. Ultimately, the call is yours to make, so if you are playing in a very populated server and you need food, then Tallbirds might be worth the investment. At least relocating them would be. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, because I personally don't see all too much value in it. Let me know if you guys can think of anything that makes, like, Tallbirds really, really good. Or if I'm, you know, just wrong. I don't know. But that's all I really wanted to talk about. I am getting closer to 1,000 whole subscribers, which is, like, the big mark that I would like to hit by the end of this year. So if you guys, you know, aren't already subscribed, maybe consider doing that. But until next time, bye-bye.